Well, welcome everyone to the latest Water Cooler Wisdom. For those of you who haven't joined, we have semi-weekly experts that come in, and then we do a chat in about 10 minutes. So we will do our best today. I am super excited to have my guest join me today, Eric J. Blake. But before I get started talking with Eric, for those of you who don't know me, I am Dana Zellers. I'm an executive and leadership coach, team facilitator, and speaker. And I work with those busy professionals who want to be successful at work, but probably want to stop ignoring their personal lives. Which leads me to somebody who complements what I do in such a lovely way. Eric, will you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. Yes, my name is Eric Blake. I'm a certified financial planner, founder of Blake Wealth Management. And as a firm, our primary focus is retirement planning for women over 55. In many cases, they may be single by choice, they may be widowed, they may be divorced. So that's really where our emphasis is partnering, offering a partner financially to help navigate some of these big decisions that you might face as you're going into retirement or going through retirement. And just, a little bit about my background. I was raised by a single mother. So that's where it all started. And then my grandmother, who my grandparents were very important early on in my life. She was a widow at 62. And the man I call daddy, my grandfather, he actually passed away at that point. And so I have seen the things that my mom's gone through. I've seen the challenges that my grandmother went through, as she is now a widow for 28 years. She turned 90 years old this year. But that was really my inspiration and why kind of my why, if you want to call it that.
Oh, I love that. I love hearing the personal aspect. We know it is why people care so much. And I think, you really touched on sort of those women who are a little bit older, a little bit mid-career. I think part of the challenge is people are so busy right now trying to juggle it all. They've got work, they've likely got family, they potentially have parents that they are trying to do it. And as we know, women tend to be caretakers.
Yep.
And so they're taking a lot of that burden on themselves. So what can women do now to start easing some of the fear for what's going to happen in the future and the stress as things move forward, as they get closer and closer to retirement and onward?
I think the biggest challenge is, and unfortunately, when it comes to money, that's always one of the easier things to put off, right? Well, I'll do that next week. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that. I'll get to that next year. I got plenty of time. I'm not going to retire for, another 10, 15 years. And all of a sudden, we're less than 5 years away and it's here on us. It's right on top of us. And we don't necessarily have a plan. And when you think about money itself, there's the American Psychological Association has said for many years that money is just one of those leading causes of stress, conflict in relationships. And, you see it creep into your career. You see it creep into your family life, whether it's your spouse, your children. Yeah. It impacts so many different areas. But I think the challenge often is just an unwillingness to have those deep conversations, those important conversations. And I think that's really where it has to start, is just being open, having those conversations. Again, if you are married, the back and forth dialogue, figuring out what is it that we want to accomplish financially. Because again, when those stresses start creeping in, it's going to impact your work. If you're not having those conversations, you got money stress, it's going to start creeping into the other areas of your life. And it's going to negatively impact you in many cases, even your health. It definitely creeps into your health. Yeah. And it's one of those unseen aspects that most people don't think about.
No, I think that's so true. I think, money for so many is kind of a taboo subject. It's not something we want to talk about. It's not something we want to get into. And then we get into this pattern where we kind of bury our head in the sand. Like you said, it's something that we can look at later. And because we don't know, we're putting it off. But I think people are making decisions kind of now about their career where they kind of need that information in order to figure out kind of what these next chapters look like. And so it sounds like really kind of the conversation is the first step.
Right. And it's funny you use that word taboo. So I'm just going to give a shout out to Kathleen Kingsbury. She wrote a book called Breaking Money Silence.
Great.
And it's exactly about that topic of money being such a taboo topic. And a lot of it comes from how you grew up, how your parents dealt with money and how they communicated about money, and whether or not you have those, we'll call it skills, to talk about money in the first place. And so when you don't, if you're worried, if you have your own worries, but you're not willing to vocalize those worries to your partner, That's where it becomes such a challenge. So it's really just being willing to have those hard conversations, finding resources, whether it's a book, it's a podcast,
Mhm.
it's what you're doing right now. Actually, this is bringing awareness to topics like this, where you got to be able to, you got to be willing to step back and say, okay, if we don't have these conversations
Mhm.
now, they're going to be even harder later.
Right.
Because if you don't know, are we on track for retirement? What does our retirement even look like? How do we know if we're on track or not?
Yeah.
Do we have enough life insurance? If you're younger in family, you are pre-retired, you're not to retirement yet. Have we talked about, do we have enough life insurance? Those types of topics are not easy, but they are so critical. Estate planning, that's always one of those big taboo topics as well. Like, we got to get a will, we got to
Yeah.
get power of attorney, we got to have what happens to our kids if something happens to us. They're not easy topics to talk about, but they're so critical, because if you just got to put yourself in the mind frame of, okay, if we don't talk about it now and something happens,
Yeah.
it is going to be significantly worse after the fact if we don't do it now.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And something happening can vary pretty greatly. I think that, we don't want to see those situations where your spouse passes and you don't have the information. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what to do with that. But you also, I know people who have faced a layoff, who have faced, issues with their kids or going off to school. And like we talked about, dealing in that sandwich generation where you're dealing with parents. And so things happening really could be anything. And so the more information you have, the sooner, the more prepared you are going to be when those stressful circumstances happen, so that you're not also scrambling with this lack of knowledge about the information.
Well, what happens is, we kind of all fill our roles. We find our role in the relationship,
Yeah.
especially if we're talking about a married couple,
Yeah.
of where he handles the bills, or she handles the bills, or he handles the investments, or I deal more with the kids, I deal more with the schedule and those types of things. We all find our roles, and most of the time it's what I feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
many cases, women don't always feel comfortable with the investing side, or the financial side, period. And it's not because it's not important to them. It's just that the day-to-day, okay, which mutual fund are we going to buy, or which of this or that are we
Yeah.
going to buy, or what are we going to do here? Women are more focused on, well, what's this going to do for my family? How is this going to protect us? But you also find that when you get in those roles again and you feel comfortable in your role, you find it difficult to say, okay, well, let me ask a question about this. How are we doing this? How are we handling our investments? How are we handling our retirement plan? And then, as again, you talked about the aspect of caregiving. You start getting into the retirement conversation and the circumstances where women often have lower earnings. It's not necessarily always because of just a lower salary. Sometimes it's because they've had years out of the
Yeah.
workforce, because they were a stay-at-home mom, or they've
Absolutely.
taken on that role of caregiving for parents. And so they may have a few years where they've been out of the workforce, and now their Social Security benefits are less. And now we start thinking about what the impact of that is, or lower retirement savings.
Yeah.
And there's a statistic out there that shocks almost everybody. I'll give you a couple of them, actually. So the average widow in the United States is 59 and a half years old.
Ooh,
Not very old, right?
that feels young. Yeah.
That means you might have, do we always know there's the potential for getting remarried and things like that? But, at 59 and a half, and my grandmother was 62,
Yeah.
she's been a widow for 28 years. You
Hmm.
could be an extended period of time where it's just you.
Yeah.
And if you're not having those conversations today about what does our financial situation look like, do we have enough life insurance? Are we doing the right things from an investment perspective? Are we doing the right things for life insurance? Do we have our estate plan? That's a big one, because if something happens to him, which statistically speaking, that's most
That's the way it
frequent.
goes. Yeah.
If we don't put these pieces in place now, it's going to be so much harder on the other side of this, where now you're trying to put these, I always describe it as kind of putting these pieces of the puzzle back together, but now it's a completely different picture than what you thought it was going to
Yeah.
be even just yesterday, if something unfortunate were to happen. And so again, you got to have those conversations. It's not easy, but it is so important. There's also some stats you might see where, people would rather talk about death than talk about money. And again, it's because of that taboo aspect of
Right.
it. It's just not comfortable. It's not comfortable to talk about. And so the other thing that I don't think I gave you that second statistic I was referring to, but we talked about the average age of the widow being 59 and a half. About 70% of women will change financial advisors within 12 months of losing their husband.
Oh,
And that's part of it. It's that communication factor,
yeah.
where the financial advisor, whether the woman wasn't involved with the financial advisor, or Unfortunately, I think it's one of the failures of our industry and the financial services industry of the financial advisor not speaking to the wife and making her part of the conversation. That is so critical. And I still hear stories. It's unfortunate. I still hear stories about this happening to clients who have come to work with us specifically because, this financial advisor just didn't treat me with the professionalism that I thought I deserved. And so that happens as well. So if it's not happening, if those conversations are happening today and they're not happening with your financial advisor, find a new financial advisor that will have those conversations and will speak to you directly. When you ask the question, that answer should come to you directly, not I'm turning over here and answering to your husband.
Yeah.
Right. So those are some of the things as well. We're talking about communication. It's one-on-one communication between spouses. It's communication with professionals in your life that can help navigate these different parts of your financial life. It's all those things together that really are going to put you on the right track. And again, we're talking about alleviating stress and allowing you to focus on your career.
Right.
That's what has to have in place. You got to have these pieces in place so that you're not worried about, well, do I have too much credit card debt? I got to work longer. Now I'm losing time with my kids because I'm at the office. Yeah. All these things tie together.
Well, we have started the conversation, but if people want to hear more from you, what is the best way to get a hold of you and to follow?
So there's a couple of ways I'll share. So number one is our website, blakewealthmanagement.com. On there, we've got a lot of different free resources. If you're looking at, hey, do I want to hire a financial advisor? What would that look like? How could I work with you? That's an option. But I would really suggest going to our podcast. So we have the Simply Retirement podcast, and it is specifically focused on topics we were just talking about. Again, primarily women over 55 and some of these challenges that women face when they're dealing with caregiving, they're dealing with healthcare challenges, they're dealing with Social Security decisions. So all these different things we've talked about, that's exactly what we focus on with the podcast and just providing education and getting resources out there. So again, whether it's a book, it's a podcast, whatever it is, whatever your platform is that you feel most comfortable with, go out there and find that, get on that and educate yourself so that you can have more confidence when you have these conversations.
I love it. And we do have a QR code up here for a little free resource for folks.
Absolutely. So that goes to our Simply Retirement Roadmap process. And it's very simple. It's our 3-step process that we use to help clients make an educated and informed decision about whether we're the right firm to navigate that retirement process and that retirement journey. That's one of the things I would encourage you to do. If you're looking for guidance, you're looking for help, find somebody that you trust. But if you're looking to hire a financial advisor, just understand what their process is. And this is ours to help you make an informed decision.
I love it. And for those of you who are trying to find a little more time in your week to do things like this, to have these conversations, I recommend that you take advantage of my free resource, the Better Week Blueprint, which will help you do the right things and gain some time back in your week. Well, before we say goodbye, I did want to share just a little disclaimer that we have up here to make sure that, here we go. We are talking about a financial institution, and so just a few notes here that we want to ensure that you have. And with that, Eric, thank you so much for joining me. This was so informative again, and I think really just normalizing having these conversations and really making sure that you have the right support in any of those decisions is going to really make a real difference in people's lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. And for those of you who enjoyed this conversation, please come back again. Stay tuned. We have lots of more great experts and conversations just like this. I look forward to seeing you on another Water